Hi guys, I wanted to give an example of this quadratic formula and solving these income and cost kind of equations like we had in class today. And so I'm going to be putting this in the folder, so that in the Unit 4 folder, so that you can take a look at it if you get stuck with homework tonight. So this problem, in making business plans for a pizza sale fundraiser, the band boosters at Roosevelt High School figured out how both sales income, I of N, and selling expenses, similar costs, E of N, would probably depend on number of pizzas sold, N. They predicted that I of N is negative 0.05 N squared plus 20N, and E of N equals 5N plus 250. Now the task that they're asking us here, estimate the values of N. So how many pizzas for which I of N equals E of N. So your income and your expenses are the same. Income equals expenses is your break-even point. So there's no profit made. So this will help them determine how many pizzas need to be sold in order to turn a profit, which is what a fundraiser is all about. So my income was this function, 0.05 N squared plus 20N. And that's going to equal my expenses function, which is 5N plus 250. And now I need to solve this. This is a quadratic equation. It needs to equal 0 before I can do anything with it. So I'm going to move this and move this by subtracting 5N and subtracting 250. From the like terms on this side, I'm going to subtract 5N here, but there's nothing else for me to, no constant over here to subtract the 250 from, so that's going to have to be separate. So my new equation is negative 5/100 N squared plus 15N minus 250 equals 0. And this is where I can now use my quadratic formula. This is not going to be a factorable equation. Quadratic formula. And if you remember, the quadratic formula is x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Pop goes the weasel. So when I go and try to put this in here, now I'm going to make sure I know what my a and b are. So this is A, this is B, this is C. So in this case, instead of x, my variable is n. I'm going to do n equals opposite of b, negative 15, plus or minus the square root. Please put this in parentheses. 0.05, negative 0.05 squared. Put it in parentheses so when you put it in your calculator, you don't get it wrong. Minus 4. Ooh, that's wrong, isn't it? Come on, Ms. Loftus. This isn't this. This is 15 squared. So let me fix that. 15 squared minus 4 times negative 0.05 for my A value and negative 250 for my C value. Sorry about that. Divided by 2 times A, which is negative 0.05. So then I end up with negative 15 plus or minus, and oh my goodness. Okay, so what's going to happen now? So I am going to go over to my calculator, and I'm going to put this into the calculator. This 15 squared minus 4 times negative 0.05. Actually, what I'm going to do, I lied. This, show you what happens. So 15 squared is 225 minus 4 times a negative is positive. So when I multiply all this together, I actually get 50. And then I divide that by negative 1/10. So as I'm dividing out this and figuring out this gives me negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 175 divided by negative 1/10. Square root of 175, not a perfect square. So I'm going to end up with an irrational number. So since this is number of pizzas, you want to round to the nearest whole number. It's not to the nearest tenth and is not an amount of money. It's the number of pizzas. So on my calculator, I'm going to do n equals 15, negative 15, plus the square root of 175. Do that first, then divide by negative 1/10. Then n equals negative 15 minus the square root of 175, divided by negative 1/10. So remember, this plus minus here means you're going to do it twice. You have possibility of two answers. So now when I go into my calculator and do this, I am going to do negative 15 plus the square root of 175. Find out what that is first. Then divide that by negative 1/10. And I get about 17.7. 17.7, you can't do 0.7, so I'm going to round that up to 18. And then I'm going to do the same thing, negative 15 minus the square root of 175. Find that. And divide that by negative 1/10. And I get 282, approximately 282. So when I come back over here, my answers are going to be n equals about approximately 18, and n is approximately 282. So what that means is that the fundraiser, now if you go back to what we solved right here, all right, we set it right here. This is the break-even point. So this is the number of pizzas that will make the fundraiser break even. So the fundraiser will break even at 18 pizzas and 282 pizzas. That is the answer to the question. Don't give me just this. Answer with a sentence. So I know you know what those numbers mean. And that's what you need to do when you're working on these kinds of problems. Now, if I asked how much money that would, here you know how much money that's going to be. Technically, it's going to mean that they're the same. You don't know how much money that is, but it doesn't really matter because you know you're not making a profit. But be careful in other situations when you know, they might also ask how much money, especially those max min questions. So most of your homework questions are like this. So follow this example, and I apologize for those two little interruptions in there. And good luck, and please be sure to ask any questions. Write a question on your paper if you have any about this assignment. Thank you, guys.